Hello and welcome to Dinis Guarda Cities ABC YouTube podcast series. I'm very excited to be here with you and all my audience around the world, and especially with people that I deeply respect and trying to talk about what is changing the world and what is making it special. So our YouTube channel has been fast growing, and in the last almost 1 year, we've been growing both users, but as well getting fantastic people that I'm very passionate about interviewing, profiling, and engaging. And as well, for people listening to us, it's always important to remember. So this YouTube channel is as well distributed in Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and we are getting close to 10 million views. So we are trying to work to make sure that we improve. But especially, I'm very excited today and welcoming to our series, Bobby Lee. So great to have you here, Bobby.
Thank you, Dinis.
So
Good to see you again.
My pleasure. So I'm very excited about this, and actually you were in my list of people to interview. So it's great that you can go through this. So I'll go through a bit of your bio because you are one of the, I would say, the people that were the inception of Bitcoin, both as a thought leader, but as well an entrepreneur. And as well, you are right now launching a new book, which we're going to be talking. But just for people, of course, you are quite known in the industry, but it's always important to look. So you are an author, entrepreneur, and Bitcoin ambassador and proponent. You were the founder of BTCC. That was the China first longest running cryptocurrency exchange. And you've been, since you sold it in 2018, you created the company Ballet, a company that makes easy to use physical cryptocurrency wallets that is headquartered in Las Vegas, Nevada, and the US. And your new book is The Promise of Bitcoin, which you're going to be talking. And I think in this new book, you touch, here it is. Very good. So, and you touch a lot of the things in terms of strategies about Bitcoin, a lot of different things. And I'm particularly interested as well to highlight the efforts you've been doing. Now, of course, Bitcoin is mainstream. Everyone talks about it. All the biggest brands in the planet, the banks and so forth. But you were one of the first ones. And when we started, there was, of course, a lot of question marks, a lot of different things. So let's start by your basics and your foundation. So can you tell us a bit about your background, Bobby, and where you grew up, a bit of your education? First of all, I would like to start with that.
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Africa, actually. My parents are Chinese from Hong Kong and Shanghai. I was born in Africa in a country called Ivory Coast. It's in West Africa. It used to be a French colony. So I learned to speak some French when I grew up, but I actually went to American school, so I learned English as well. So I spent 14 years there in Africa, and then I moved to the US for high school. So I went to a small private high school called Lawrenceville School in New Jersey. And then for college, I went to Stanford University and studied computer science. So I've always been a very technical sort of engineering person. So that's why I really enjoyed studying computer science at Stanford.
Oh, that's an impressive background. And as well, from Africa to Stanford, it's amazing. So as well,
yes.
So when we were after Stanford, you ended up actually being a software engineer at Yahoo. So you were in the beginning of the internet and the beginning of the cryptocurrency. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it was great because at Stanford, that's when the internet really, during those years, the internet really came about. I first logged onto the internet using something called CompuServe. That was in 1992, even before the internet I used at Stanford, which had a live connection to the internet. And then, of course, during '94, you see Netscape, the Mosaic browser, and then Netscape, and so on. So I interned at Microsoft, working on Internet Explorer 3. I interned at IBM, worked on their ThinkPad computers, and a bunch of stuff. So eventually, by 1998, after I graduated with a master's degree, also in computer science, I went to Yahoo. So over there, I was a software programmer. So I started as a computer programmer. Language was C, C++, some Perl scripting, and worked on online communities for Yahoo. Eventually I became a manager. So I stayed at Yahoo for 8 years. So we even worked on the virtual currencies and stuff like that. But back then it was all centralized virtual currencies. So very different from Bitcoin, which came later.
Well, that's quite impressive, just that in itself, because at the time, of course, Yahoo was the biggest company in the internet in the world. And it was, so I want to, before we go to the other things and of course, Bitcoin, so tell us a bit about that, because it's really quite impressive because you were quite young. You were just coming from the
Yes.
university, but you were in the center of the internet because Yahoo mostly, now, of course, it's a different story.
Yeah.
But
Now it's
yeah.
yeah. But Yahoo was at the peak of the internet big bubble boom. Yeah. So it was really awesome. Yahoo was a great company to work for, a great brand, a lot, very impressive team, technical people. And I was there from 1998 to 2006. So 8 years I spent at Yahoo. Online communities, so Yahoo clubs, Yahoo groups, the mailing, the email delivery infrastructure, online communities, online identity, virtual currencies. Those are the things I was responsible for from an engineering management perspective.
That's really impressive. So, and then from that, can you tell us how did you continue with your career? Because of course, you went from the beginning of the internet to the end, to the beginning of the cryptocurrencies. So first of all, how did you start with crypto? How did you start with Bitcoin? And how did you make the bridge from that company? Of course, you mentioned already that you were touching a bit of cryptocurrency, or at least some beginning digital currencies. But at the time
Yeah,
was kind of like just drafts compared to what
yeah.
we have
So
now.
yeah, so I spent so I spent a lot of time at Yahoo. So after that, I took a break and I moved to China. Actually, moved to Shanghai in early 2007, and then I got a job, worked at EMC, and then worked at a Chinese IPTV company, so online video, and then also at Walmart for e-commerce. So after I left Walmart, that's when I decided to jump into crypto full time. My first interaction with crypto with Bitcoin was actually in the spring of 2011. So now this actually marks the 10-year anniversary for me and Bitcoin. My brother Charlie introduced me to Bitcoin. He started mining Bitcoin. We're talking about what makes Bitcoin valuable. Why is it digital gold? Can it be more valuable than gold, and so on? So that was early 2011. And I remember, I built my own PC with graphics cards, 4 graphics card on a motherboard, mining Bitcoin in the summer of 2011. And at the time, the hash rate was very small. So each graphics card was only 220 mega hash per second. Today, we're talking about tera hashes, which is a million times more than a mega hash. Yeah, so it's pretty crazy.
And so how did you, I would like to see, because I think, of course, right now, 2011 was when Bitcoin started. So what was the first thing you heard? It was because of the white paper, was because of the community online, was because of gaming? Because I know a lot of people start with gaming and then went to Bitcoin. How did you, or I just would like to see, how did you first discover, of course,
So
Bitcoin and
I
stuff?
discovered Bitcoin. So my brother told me about it. So I was interested in Bitcoin from a financial perspective as digital money. So mining was secondary, was just a way for me to understanding how Bitcoin works, how it was transacted, how Bitcoin came about to the system. So Charlie and I, we talked about over the phone long distance in the spring of 2011, and then I eventually got into mining myself. Yeah, so that's how I got started.
Wow, that's impressive. And from those days, can you tell us a bit about those days? Because of course you had your brother mining, and there's of course all that part, but a bit of that, because of course right now that is the inception of the internet. There's a lot of things, or the inception of, well, it was still the inception of the internet, but it was the inception of all the cryptocurrencies. But at the time was still, I remember I was as well starting at the time. And I remember that I was coming from a banking perspective, and I had all my friends in London in the fintech community tell me, if you tell anyone that you're touching Bitcoin, you're going to be banned for anything.
Yeah,
But now,
exactly.
10 years afterwards, things are a bit different. But I remember in 2011, I was working actually in a a bit of a Bitcoin aggregator of prices and information. So tell us a bit about how was at the time when you start getting to this. Did you start buying?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was first of all, I didn't buy enough in 2011, so that's one of my biggest regrets. So Bitcoin was actually a hobbyist for almost everyone. No one took it seriously. It was just a hobbyist. It was like a computer gaming, right? It's just a hobbyist. There's no professionals. So, but however, I made a promise to a friend that if I ever did a startup, I would do it in Bitcoin. And at the time, I had a really good job at Walmart as an executive, as a tech executive doing e-commerce in China. So it was far off in terms of ever starting a company in Bitcoin. However, the opportunity came a year and a half later. By December of 2012, that's when I was itching for a new job, and I was either gonna go back and get a tech job in China, in Beijing, or start a company, and I could stay in Shanghai. So I decided to start a company and to do it Bitcoin. That's when I got in touch with my co-founders of BTC China and decided to pull together and really launch the company as an international sort of a crypto company, global crypto company. So that was the birth of BTC China and BTCC. So we started in early 2013 with that effort and got fundraising. We were the first company to get venture fundraising in all of Asia for crypto.
And for instance, from these first days of Bitcoin, because of course your book is about that, and I want to go there, but I'm very interested because of course not a lot of people did what you did, because you became, well, first of all, creating at the time, let's say 10 years ago, building, or 12 years ago, building something, or 10 years, building something like an exchange in crypto was a bit risky, to say less.
Yes.
Especially in China as well. So can you tell us a bit how was that? And
I remember. So I remember. So we were all getting into this, and I remember, KYC. Today, everybody knows what KYC means. It means know your customer. But back in 2013, when we were starting off with the Bitcoin exchange, BTC China, it was a very foreign term. No one understood what it was. I was talking to banks, trying to get bank accounts in Hong Kong, and telling bank managers, bank management that, hey, we can do proper KYC and all that stuff. So we were in the very early pre-regulation days. Basically, 2013, I was telling I remember having this conversation with bankers in Hong Kong, China, that Bitcoin is coming, Bitcoin is big, so they would dismiss it. And of course, later on, of course, the regulation got tighter, so it became very hard to do crypto in China. But still, it was fun to be part of that early sort of, to be really early in talking to bankers about cryptocurrency, about exchanges, about digital currency, KYC, identity, and all that stuff.
And from that one, you became as well an ambassador. So you start working a lot of events worldwide. You were, besides, of course, building the community. So how was that work? Because it was not easy to start, because at the time, of course, it was with the Silk Road, all the big issues. Of course, the price went, it was the first really growth of Bitcoin. But as well, you were as well from the US, where we were at the top of the technology. You went to China, which at the time was still building the infrastructure to become the biggest powerhouse in fintech, which right now is probably 10 years ahead. So how was this inception, both from a perspective of the different geopolitics and different technologies, but as well building the exchange and as well creating the first ambassador things that you were doing?
What was the question?
How did you build so in one end you were building the exchange and we had funding.
Yes,
you were dealing as well with all the context of China, which is at the time was still building the infrastructure, because 10 years ago China was not what it is now. It was a different country. But at the same time, you had all the background of Stanford and the US and Yahoo. So a bit of how do you put all of these cards on the table, and how did you play the cards? Because it's interesting. I'm interested for people with me personal as well.
Yeah. So it was a combination, right? I was very passionate about Bitcoin myself. I stopped mining after that summer, so I didn't do any mining myself later. But it was fun building the company. I also invested in Bitcoin, and I became, I spoke about Bitcoin at conferences worldwide. Basically, talking to journalists, speaking at conferences. It was a lot of fun. It was promoting Bitcoin. I remember doing a lot of local meetups in China at the time, in Shanghai, Beijing, and really explaining it to people who are new to the sector. And at the time, the common story is, I would tell people to invest in Bitcoin, but the common story is they would always say it's too expensive. It's too expensive. So it's kind of, Bitcoin is one of those weird animals where no matter when you look at it, it's either too expensive or it's a bad investment because it crashes a lot. So the price is too, yeah. So for that reason, a lot of people have been hesitant and really missed the Bitcoin train.
I think coming back to your brother and to the relationship, because of course your brother is as well another visionary that created Litecoin.
Yeah.
And so how was that relationship? Because your brother was mining, but as well he created, of course, one of the leading cryptocurrencies in the world. How was that part as well? And as well, I'm interested in you were doing that still as being born in Africa, studied in the US, and then coming to
Yeah.
China. So there's a cultural part that is particularly interesting to look from money perspective, culture, and of course financial.
Yeah, so I was very close to my brother. So we went, we went to the same elementary school, went to the same high school. For college, we went our separate ways. I went to Stanford, he went to MIT, and then we even lived together as roommates in Silicon Valley afterwards. So after we started mining in the summer of 2000, spring of summer 2011, and essentially back then they had the very first altcoins. Okay, this is before Litecoin came out. So in I'm trying to think, basically in the summer there was an altcoin called IO coin. No one thinks about it anymore. It's IO coin. It was a fork of Bitcoin that used the same hashing algorithm, SHA-256. So we switched our miners to mine Bitcoin, from mining Bitcoin to mining IO coin, and then flip the iCoin for BTC. So I remember that was our first sort of altcoin transaction from mining stuff. And then later that year, in the fall of 2011, he created a Litecoin. So Litecoin was created in the fall, and he was smart to have used a different hashing method. Instead of SHA-256, he used the script hashing function for the Litecoin proof of work. So that was exciting. I actually didn't find out about, like, he did that on his own, so I didn't actually find out about Litecoin until years later, until 2 years later.
And
yeah, so I missed out on mining Litecoin early.
And it went in the family.
Yeah.
That's impressive. So one of the things that I want to touch, it's really that at a certain point your exchange was the biggest in the world. So actually was bigger than Mt. Gox. You had around 31% of the global transaction. So how did you cope with that? Because I think in the end of the day, when you look at this, very few people are touching the history and as well the people that made this happen. And I think especially you, I admire you a lot because you have the economic background, the technology background, but as well you've been pushing things forward and that not just coming on the waves and just on the speculation.
Yeah. So Bitcoin, so BTC China, the exchange volume really surpassed Mt. Gox. I think in the fall of 2013. Probably around October, November time. I forgot exactly which day, but we did exceed the trading volumes on Mt. Gox, and these are all real trading volume numbers, by the way. So there was no fake numbers or anything on our site. So that's when we became so-called the world's largest. And then and then within 6 months, I think Mt. Gox closed down. They got hacked. They shut down. And they filed for bankruptcy. So at that time, then we became the world's longest running exchange because Mt. Gox started before us, but we started in our exchange site started in June of 2011. Yeah. So it was fun. It was fun to be sort of on king of the hill for a moment, to have run the world's large sort of highest trading volume exchange. It was crazy. A lot of new customers opening accounts, a lot of trading volume. And we were always upgrading the hardware, the computing, the infrastructure to accommodate the higher and higher trading volumes. Yeah.
So and I think from that, then you sold the exchange, and since then you've been doing a couple of different things. But when you sold the exchange, after that, so you've been as well talking a lot about Bitcoin, and I think that brings you to the book, and probably we'll touch right now. So from that angle, from let's say 2014, where we were leading the biggest crypto exchange in the world, which was 7-8 years ago. Time passes, but still a huge development, because of course now Bitcoin is definitely right now bigger than actually some of the biggest corporations in the planet, and at the same time it's still growing, and at the moment the price is still going. So I think before you go to the book, so how do you see this kind of trajectory from the beginning? You were there in 2011, 2014, you built this, then you sold the exchange, and then you kept, of course, speaking global events, doing other things, and you have the Ballet app as well that you did recently. But what was, let's say, how did you saw this trajectory? Because you were as well on this, but how did you see this, and some highlights that you want to highlight for people listening to us? Because I think it's really important to look at the history and why this is so important, but as well understand what happened. And I always like to go through the details.
Yeah. So I saw Bitcoin I early on, from very early on, I understood the technical capabilities of Bitcoin being decentralized peer-to-peer, and the fact that it cannot be stopped, it cannot be shut down. So for those reasons, and also I understood the economic principles of it having a strong upper limit of 21 million. So for those reasons, I knew that Bitcoin was here to stay, especially with the block reward having every 4 years. That's going to add pressure to the price, to the mining infrastructure, all the mining costs, and the price has to increase and all that. So sort of the stock to flow model people talk about these days. So for that reason, I was a big Bitcoin fan, a big Bitcoin believer in the early days, and I would tell everyone I see to invest and buy Bitcoin. And at the time, it was very hard to convince people because people would think that I'm crazy, I'm nuts, right? So that's why, now that on my 10-year anniversary of Bitcoin, I want to publish this book and really share to the world, all the people out there, all the new coiners, all the no coiners. Here's your chance. Bitcoin is still tremendously undervalued. Today, Bitcoin is $1 trillion, but I think that Bitcoin can easily go to 100 trillion, 200 trillion in value. And the reason is all the world's largest asset classes, real estate, stocks, bonds, precious metals are all in the multi-trillion dollars. So that's why I think Bitcoin can reach that same sort of global asset class as all of the other ones. And for that, it's $100 trillion at least.
Yeah, I want to touch that. So let's go to your book. So
yeah,
your book is called The Promise of
The Promise of Bitcoin. I just got author's copy early. So this is getting launched in the United States on May 18th. So it's coming out May 18th, very soon. People can order this on Amazon.com. People can pre-order it. You can also buy the Kindle version. There's also going to be an audiobook version of this, and hopefully several translations all around the world. Yeah, so it's basically it's really for the mass market. So the subtitle is called "The Future of Money and How it can work for you." So the future of money is basically the internet is here. We need to have a digital currency where everyone can transact and make payments and store wealth. So this is the future in terms of digital currency as money. Okay, I think that's very important. And the second aspect is, I think Bitcoin is an investment of a lifetime. Even though I've already benefited financially from my Bitcoin investment, I think we're still in the early stage. So this is not mainstream yet. Even though I know you mentioned it's mainstream, it's in the mainstream in the sense that people are aware of it, but it's not in the mainstream that everybody uses it. It's kind of like when cars first came out 100 years ago, a lot of car companies and people know the concept of a car, but for some people, they've never ridden in a car. Certainly for most people, they don't own a car. Whereas today, cars are mainstream. In developed countries, people can afford and buy and own a car. And almost everyone has ridden in the car. I think 90% or maybe, I don't know what percent of the world has ridden in the car. But the point is, cars are mainstream today, whereas Bitcoin is not yet mainstream because not the vast majority of the people in the world own cryptocurrency. Which is also why I created my other company called, my second company called Ballet. We make wallets for regular people to own cryptocurrency very easily.
No, that's
really. So the book, Go ahead. And did you get a copy? You got to read the preview copy?
I have some quotes here to speak, and I'm going to put all of these in the notes around the interview. But go for it because I have a lot of questions. But go ahead.
No, please ask me.
First, it's good to hear from you because it's your baby. So, firstly,
so I would say that I talk about why Bitcoin is a great investment. I talk about the history, my history going into Bitcoin. I talk about the regulation. I talk about why regulation cannot crush Bitcoin, why it cannot be crushed. So a lot of also personal anecdotes with the banking system. The problem. So Bitcoin is only successful because of the failures of the existing monetary system. Okay, so think about it this way: we have so people don't think about this because the monetary system that we live in is like air and gravity. We don't think about it. It's so natural. We don't think about the air we breathe. We don't think about the gravity holding us onto the earth. So same thing, we don't think about the money we use. The money we use, the money system, the US dollar, the international currencies, gold, all that stuff we don't think about. And what's interesting is the money system actually went through a huge change 50 years ago. So before 50 years ago, before 1971, money, paper money, coins were all backed by physical precious metals like gold and silver. After 1971, paper money became unhinged. They can print as much as they want. And that's why money has lost its value over time. It's the inflation aspect of it. So this is why Bitcoin is important. We were going back to the principles of sound money, the idea that money should be tangible, money should be something that's worth something. So that's why Bitcoin is so important. And that's why Bitcoin has appreciated in price. People ask me, will Bitcoin go up in price? Of course it will. As long as you continue to measure the price of Bitcoin in US dollars, then Bitcoin will continue to go up in price because there's no end in sight when they keep printing money, right? The US government, the Fed, they will keep printing more and more money. The Europeans, the euro, all the currencies in the world being printed more and more and more. More national debt, more bonds, more printing of money, lower interest rates. So it's going to go crazy, I think.
So I think on the book, it's really, well, I'm very excited. I've been reading it. And well, first of all, I think I want to just highlight the quotes around the book, which I think is important to show how important this book is, because you have quotes from all the most influential people in the planet, which congratulations.
Oh yeah, they all get to read an advanced copy and gave me some endorsements.
Yeah, no, but it's really impressive because I want to, for instance, if you look at Gavin Anderson, the developer of Bitcoin and former chief scientist of Bitcoin Foundation, Bitcoin is unstoppable. If you want to understand why or how it fits into the world of money or your personal financial portfolio, read The Promise of Bitcoin. That's a fantastic endorsement, especially from someone that I deeply respect. But then you have as well people like Melton Demiros, which is of course one of the first personalities and as well academic involved on this, that she highlights this. And of course you have Changpeng Zhao, the CEO of Binance. It's really impressive on that level. So and then you have of course the Winkley brothers as well here. So it's really, I think I would urge everyone listening to this to read the book like I did myself. Yeah, it's amazing what you have here, and it shows as well your impact in the Bitcoin vision, but as well in transforming it to the masses. So in terms of the book structure, and I want to touch some of the chapters, because I think it's important to look at that. So you have 13 chapters. And I want to touch just some top level. Of course, this is 1 hour interview. We cannot go for everything, but I have a lot of questions.
Yeah.
But I'll try to synthesize. So one of the things is that you have, of course, from the birth of Bitcoin to the three horsemen, which I like a lot, the way you put it, mining, wallets, and exchanges.
Yes.
And of course, so let's touch this part of mining, wallets, and exchanges, because I think it's a very important thing, because the strength of Bitcoin right now, of course, is, and of course, Coinbase was particularly important as well to somehow create a sense of trust around Bitcoin. But on the mining, and you mentioned about your brother, that was one of the first people mining, and of course, creating one of the biggest Bitcoin cryptocurrencies in the world. How do you see these three things? And of course, you are as well the founder of a wallet. So the mining, the wallets, and exchanges, and how do you see this from the present and for the future?
Yeah, so mining, exchange, and wallets are the three horsemen, basically, I talk about. They're the three sort of important cornerstones of the ecosystem. Mining is important, number one, because that's how Bitcoin comes into circulation. That's how Bitcoin transactions get confirmed. So it's a 2-in-1 special. Basically, it's both, and this is the invention of Bitcoin, right? Because with Bitcoin mining, basically Bitcoin has decentralized structure. So we want a way to confirm the transactions. The world needs to know which transactions are real, which transactions have occurred, which transactions are legitimate, and you have to use cryptography, proof of work, to prove that this transaction is really the legitimate one. And mining is a consortium of people around the world contributing computing power to sort of confirm the transaction. And then in return, they get rewarded with Bitcoin. That's one of the mining rewards. And where does the reward come from? It comes from a combination of the fees that people pay to send Bitcoins, and also from the natural 21 million supply. So 21 million supply of Bitcoin actually gets given out for free to the miners all over the world. But the schedule of it, how often it gets given out, it decreases every 4 years. So half of the 21 million gets given out in the first 4 years, and the second 1/4 gets given out in the next 4 years, and then 1/8 gets given out in the third 4 years. So every 4 years we have the block reward halving. So that's what's really interesting about Bitcoin mining. So and then exchanges are the way for people to buy and sell Bitcoin. So if you don't mine, then how else can you buy Bitcoin? You can buy Bitcoin from other people, or people can pay for it with goods and services. So pay for Bitcoin for goods and services. So on the other hand, you can also go to a centralized exchange to buy and sell Bitcoin. So that's very important for the liquidity, for the ecosystem. So I started an exchange myself. We even had a mining pool ourselves, and then we also did wallets. And of course, wallets is a third thing which is important, which is how do people store Bitcoin? So Bitcoin is not physical; it's digital currency. It's actually a private key. It's just information, right? So how do you store it? So that's very important. Some people store it in software wallets. Some people store it in hardware wallets. Some people store it on paper wallets. Some people store it in their brain. The idea is you need a way to store the private key, and that's the essence of wallets. So these three will forever be part of Bitcoin, even 100, 200 years from now.
I completely believe on that, and I think there's a lot of work. So one other thing that you touch in your book that is particularly interesting is, and I like that, is money. It's the chapter 5.
Yeah, money is a natural right.
Yeah, yeah. I like to touch that.
Yeah. So chapter 5 is called money is a natural right. And what I mean by that is, what is money? The money we have in our wallets, the money we have in a bank account, what is it really? It really is the proof, the evidence of the work you've done. Okay, think about, I don't care if you're rich or poor. If you have money, it means you've worked hard and you've saved money, right? Because when you work, you get paid in money. And that money, if you don't use it today, then you keep it for tomorrow, for next week, for next month. And that's the money I have. So my money I have in my bank account is represented by the hard work I did in building and selling BTCC. It's also from the hard work I worked as an engineer at Yahoo. It's also for the payments I got from my internships when I was at Microsoft in the summer of 1997. So that is my money. And why did I say money is a natural right? Because if I worked hard, my money should belong to me. It should not be devalued. It should not be confiscated by the government. If the government can print more money, inflation, and I lose the value of my money, it's basically their taxation. It's a form of taxation. It's also a form of what I call like they're enslaving me, right? If I'm working for free, then I'm a slave, right? But if I work for money and the money's worthless, essentially I've become a slave as well. So that's why I think money should be a natural right. We as human beings living in a free country should have the right to our own money and the value in the money. So today you live in England, the £5 note, the £10, right? In the old days, £10 was a lot of money. You could buy a lot of things, but today £10 is very little. In fact, in the very early days, what does £10 mean? It's actually 10 pounds of sterling silver. You didn't know that, right?
Yeah, I knew partly.
Each pound was supposed to be 1 pound of sterling silver. 1 pound, however many ounces, right? So that's why money has become like devalued. It's really a shame. It's really shameful that governments have overprinted money and we've gone through this huge sort of inflation. It happens really slowly. That's why people don't notice it. But some countries happens really fast with hyperinflation. But nonetheless, inflation is not good. That's my opinion.
I think it's good. And I love that you go through the history of money and the history of, because I think right now with technology, and especially as we digitize the world economy, we're starting to have all of these different things together. So one of the things that I want to touch as well is you touch about in your chapter 10, Bitcoin as a better way of doing business. So I think this is very dear for me, and that's why I created as well Open Business Council, which is the subtitle of this podcast, because at the moment doing business is very confusing and it's very fragmented. And as we digitize the world economy, most of the people are still not using the best of this. So can you explain how do you see this, and especially you as well as a business person, but as well as technology, and as well someone that had a very solid education and technology and science?
So Bitcoin, so some companies choose to use Bitcoin for payments. So whether it's a coffee shop, a restaurant accepting Bitcoin for payments. Recently, Elon Musk said that Tesla has started accepting Bitcoin for payments for buying cars. So that's fine. But I think I think Bitcoin using for payments, think about it, payments is sending money from one location to another location. It's a 3D, the world we live in. If I send payments from the US, Las Vegas to you in London, that's a payment across the world through several thousand miles, long distance payment. But the other form of payment that's even more interesting and more important is payment through the fourth dimension, through time, right? The world we live in is not just 3 dimensions, 4-dimensional. The fourth dimension is time. So why do you want to send payments through time? Because I want to send payments so I could use it in the future. That's why people save money. Think about it. The money in your bank account. The reason you have money in the bank account because you don't want to spend it all the moment you got it, right? If you spent every amount of money you made at the time you received it, then you would have zero money at all times. You spent it all right away, okay? So humans, it's very important for us to save money, to sort of save it for the future use, whether you want to save for vacation, you want to save it for college education for your children, you want to save for your own retirement, you want to save it for whatever thing you want to do next year or next month, okay? So for rent, save it for rent next month, and save it to buy a house, okay? So that's why sending money through time is important. And with Bitcoin, because of its limit of 21 million, it's very suitable for you to send to invest in Bitcoin and sit on it, hodl it. Because by holding on to the Bitcoin, it will always be the same fraction out of the total 21 million. So you're guaranteed the value will preserve itself. It might even go up. So that's why Bitcoin is so important for humanity. For the first time, we can now save money in Bitcoin, knowing that it will not depreciate.
There's a lot of things over there, and I want to touch one thing. So
yeah,
a lot of people right now, and your book is precisely trying to go in these directions of
yes,
explaining Bitcoin to bigger audiences. And of course, you have one of the biggest publishing houses behind it, McGraw-Hill, which is
McGraw-Hill. Yeah, McGraw-Hill.
One of the things you mentioned as well is about how to invest in Bitcoin. And I know that you and me have been on this for a long time, but a lot of people, and I always say, as a non-disclosure agreement, we're not here trying to teach people to trade, but I know that is one of your chapters, is how to invest in Bitcoin. I think this is very important because there's a lot of people in the FOMO, so fear of missing. But in the end of the day, like you said, you are someone that is not looking short term. So can you elaborate on that? Because I think it's very important for people listening to us.
Yeah, so for me, Bitcoin is a long-term investment. Okay, so if you want to trade short-term, don't listen to me, okay? Because I'm not going to give you advice on short-term trading. You can go to a casino, you can go trade futures, go trade leverage trading. That's fine. You can try to make money, win money that way. But for long-term, I think Bitcoin is very suitable as a long-term investment. So I'm technically not a investment advisor, but what I can tell you is what I do, which is I invest my funds long-term in Bitcoin. And chapter 11 is called How to Invest Bitcoin's World of Great Resources. Yeah, so basically this chapter talk about some of the mistakes, in my opinion, of people make in buying Bitcoin. So the first one, of course, is that people are hesitant to buy Bitcoin, right? There's too much delay. So don't hesitate, buy it right away. And then the second thing is you don't buy enough, right? That's also a big mistake. People realize they don't buy enough because so Bitcoin, think about it. If Bitcoin will only go up 10, 20%, it doesn't matter how much you buy. But if it goes up 100 times, if the purpose of investing in Bitcoin is to go up 100 times, you really have to think carefully, because if it does go up 100 times, will you regret not buying more? However, it's very risky, it's very volatile. So you want to be prepared. The amount you invest, you want to be prepared so that it could be away from you for 5 years or 10 years. You want to invest money that you can truly commit to as an investment for 5 years or 10 years. If you could do that, then Bitcoin is a great investment.
So one of the things I want to touch, Charlie, on that is really because at the moment, especially for, I know you have to do.
No, go ahead.
Okay,
yeah,
so
good.
One of the things that I see is like you mentioned. Well, I mentioned that Bitcoin is mainstream on the news, but in terms of usage, it's still around 1% or 2% of the world population, even less. So how do you see the adoption? And I think especially how we go from this kind of concept, because at the moment, not a lot of people can afford to buy one Bitcoin. You can buy a percentage because the price is too high right now. And most of the people, the income of most of the world population is very low. So how do you see these disparities between different things, but as well, the journey of bringing Bitcoin to bigger audience, but as well, for instance, I want to touch, the question is complex, but my questions are always a bit complex. But
Yeah.
one of the things that you have as well is that, for instance, Nigeria, for instance, which is a fast growing economy in Africa, is right now using Bitcoin as one of the biggest parts of payments. And you were born in Africa, so you know that especially in economies that the currencies are not stable, cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoin, are used because they're more stable than their economies, and you can send it. And so, how do you see, point one, these disparities in terms of the access to this, because you need to know about technology to invest in Bitcoin, point one. And point two is the adoption, because it's still very small, although the price, like you said, is $1 trillion and growing.
Yeah. So first of all, so Bitcoin, investing in Bitcoin, you don't have to buy one Bitcoin. Let me ask you, Dinis, is gold affordable? Can people afford to buy gold? And the answer is yes. If you're very poor, you can still buy small amounts of gold. If you're very rich, you can buy large amounts of gold. So the question is, for example, can you afford 1 kilogram of gold? What do you think? 1 kilogram of gold today is actually $58,000. It's actually even more expensive than one Bitcoin. So, but when you buy gold, you don't have to buy 1 kilogram. You can buy 1 gram. You can buy 10 grams. Right? Does that make sense? You can buy a fractional amount. Same thing with Bitcoin. You don't have to buy a full Bitcoin, just like you don't have to buy 1 kilogram of gold. You can buy 0.002 Bitcoins. So don't think of how many Bitcoins you're buying. Rather think about how much money you're investing into Bitcoin. So same thing with gold, right? If you want to buy gold, don't think about, is it 1 gram or 10 grams, right? Think about how much money you want to invest in gold. So today, Bitcoin is used both as a payment, which is what I call real-time payments for in the world where it's a 3D payment, it's traveling in 3 dimensions, right? You're going from US to London, London to Nigeria, Nigeria to China, okay? The other way is to send Bitcoin through time, which is down the future. If you have children, can you send Bitcoin to your children to pay for their college education? Can you send Bitcoin to your children to buy them a birthday cake or a vacation for when they turn 18 years old, right? So right now I ask you, how much money do you have to set aside to buy a vacation for your children when they turn 18 years old? Or how much money do you have to set aside to give them a college education, when they turn 18, 19 to go to college, right? You don't know, because you save the money, you put in the bank, how much interest rate will they give you, and how much inflation and how much money will it lose value? We just don't know. Right? Whereas with Bitcoin, if you set aside this amount, $10,000, you put it in Bitcoin. I assure you, when your children turns 18 years old or 25 years old, the amount of Bitcoin that you can buy with $10,000 today will be worth much more than what the $10,000 can buy you today. I can assure you it'll be worth more in terms of purchasing power. And that's the value. That's an interesting thing.
And on that, Bobby, you are mostly making, well, of course, one of the biggest statements, that is Bitcoin as digital gold. And I think this is a big thing that I think, of course, is not so much as the part of just the Bitcoin in itself, but what it represents and all the part, which is what your book highlights in a very perfect way. So, Bobby, so one of the things that you, of course, have been doing, and I think I know that we have limited time, especially we pass already close to 1 hour, but I still want to touch a couple of things. So one thing is, from the book, okay, you have as well Ballet, that is, of course, your wallet. So how do you look from the book and to your work with your startup and building a wallet, and what you try to do on that area? Because I think it's important to see, because like you mentioned before, we have Bitcoin as digital gold, but you've been working on all this technology with exchanges and with wallets to make it more available for people. And the wallets, I think there was a quote from Gary Vaynerchuk recently, that is that, like we have a social media account, everyone will have a digital wallet. And I want to go through that to pass to you on that.
Yeah, so this is a Ballet wallet. It's a stainless steel metal card, and it's a pre-configured wallet. It's ready to use, okay? The reason I invented and created this wallet is I want a better solution for people to hold on to their cryptocurrency, have control of their private keys in a cold wallet, safe cold wallet solution. Because in the old days, it's kind of like you either can choose easy or safety. right? You choose easy by putting your coins on an exchange in a custodial solution. You have easy, you just set a username, account, password. Okay, very easy. However, it's risky because it's online and it can get hacked, the account can get hacked, the exchange platform can get bankrupt, they can get hacked, and there could be regulatory limitations on whether or not you can withdraw Bitcoins. Okay, so it was trading off security for easiness. On the other hand, you have hardware wallets, traditional hardware wallets, very secure, you know, with chips inside, with USB cables, displays, and all that, buttons, but very hard to use, very hard to set up, very hard to configure, very hard to maintain, firmware updates, patches, all that stuff, very hard to use. You couldn't have both. So what we want to do is we want to create a solution that gives you the safety and the security of a cold storage. Cold storage means the private keys are offline, and most importantly, we want to give you control of your own private keys. Okay, at the same time, we want to make it really easy so a new user can store their Bitcoins and have custody of the Bitcoins and have cold storage right away. And this is what we've created. Ballet is the world's first wallet that supports cold storage and ease of use, ready to set up, multi-currency support. This is really a big innovation in the wallet industry. Okay, and over the years, we've only launched it for 2 years. Now we have over $250 million worth of deposits on these Ballet wallets all around the world. So the sales have really picked up. I'm really excited. We sell this on Amazon in the UK, Amazon UK, Amazon Europe, Germany, France, Italy, all these Amazon locations. In North America, Amazon US, Canada, Mexico, all the Amazons around the world sell these. And also we have resellers around the world. We sell these in China. It's really great. I'm really happy because with this wallet, we can bring cryptocurrency to the mass market, to normal people. Like your parents now can own Bitcoin. You buy this wallet, you put Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin on it, or Dogecoin, Zcash. You can put it on there and you can give it to your parents and they can own cryptocurrency. You can give it to your children. I don't know if you have children, young children, 3 or 4 years old, 10 to 12 years old, they can own cryptocurrency even without a mobile phone, even without any setup. You just load it on here, it's ready to go. So this is what we love about Ballet.
Wow, that's impressive. And for instance, for people that are less familiar with the wallets, I always like to explain. So let's say I give a present like that to my father or to my...
Yes.
So can you explain how it works? Because I think that's very important to go to these details.
So what you do is you buy this, it's ready to go, no setup. You buy it, it comes in the packaging. I don't have the packaging here, but essentially you open it, it comes with a protective case. You open it, and then the address, the Bitcoin address is on this wallet. So there's a QR code, and on the bottom, it's also the Bitcoin address. You see it, it's printed, it's human readable. It's also machine readable, okay? And then, by the way, there's the QR code, if you scratch it, there's a nice smell. So it's tamper evident. And so you load Bitcoin on here, and there's a version for Ethereum. So for example, if you want Ethereum, you can there's a version for Ethereum. I won't show the address here, but Ethereum, well, you can load Ethereum. And so there's different versions. We have versions for Dogecoin, for Litecoin, for XRP, but each one is multi-currency, okay? So they all support multiple currencies, just that they have a primary currency. So once you load the Bitcoin on here, then you can give this to your father and say, hey, Dad, happy Father's Day, or happy birthday, or some holiday, right? So Father's Day is coming up in June. You give it to your mother. Mother's Day coming up, right, on May 9th, right? So you have Mother's Day, you have Father's Day, you can give them Bitcoin, and then you tell them keep it safe. Just keep it safe, hide it somewhere, keep it where you keep jewelry, where you keep your cash, where you keep your diamonds and whatever precious gold and stuff like that. Don't lose it. And as long as you don't lose this card, you will never get hacked. You will never lose your Bitcoin. And this is what's so important, what's so good about this.
And I think it's really important. You're trying to democratize the way of, mostly it's like buying a piece of gold or a certificate of something like that. So I like that. It's really, and I think it's really important because it's a way of creating more awareness, but as well an intelligent way of savings, which is important, like you mentioned in the past. So I know that we're finalizing. So I want to touch right now. So you're touching in your book about Bitcoin, but in the last couple of years, DeFi, so decentralized finance, which Bitcoin is part of this, has been exploding. So how do you see from the Bitcoin inception, which you were part of it, to all this movement around DeFi, which right now is, I think, around $300 billion. So it's exploding.
Yeah.
And as well, it brings as well a relationship both with Bitcoin, but as well with Ethereum and a lot of other digital currencies. So how do you see these opportunities and the challenge around that?
Yes. So DeFi is very, very interesting in the sense that it allows for sort of decentralized finance where people can make investments. But the most important point DeFi is right now, DeFi is very hot for the industry people. However, for newcomers is very difficult. So because I cater to the new, for the mass audience, that's my sort of people I wanted to talk to, educate and talk about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. So for me, what I try to do is I say the most important thing is get involved in cryptocurrency first by investing in Bitcoin. Once you have invested in Bitcoin, then you can start learning about smart contracts, DeFis, and all these other yield farming and yield stuff products. But for now, for the mass audience, I would say focus on getting on board the Bitcoin digital currency train first. And if you're already on Bitcoin, you're already investing in Ethereum and all the DeFi stuff, then you can go explore. There's a lot of fun stuff, NFTs, DeFi, and all that fun stuff. So it's very exciting in that.
I think it's good. You made a very good point. It's important that people start with the basis and then they go more advanced because, avoiding
otherwise
the risk.
Otherwise it's too overwhelming. It's too overwhelming.
Exactly.
And then you risk not starting at all. That's the problem.
Yeah. So one of the last things that I want to touch is one of the parts that I like a lot in your book is about the 15 predictions for the world of cryptocurrencies.
Oh, yes.
I think it's a good way as well to finish the interview because of course you can go for a lot of things, but some of them at least.
Yes. So what do you want to talk about? I don't want to give everything away.
No, of course. No. I think just a summary, and I think probably the interview is as well a snapshot. I think everyone should buy the book. So that's the idea, of course.
It's on page 225, the last chapter, chapter 13. It's the 15 predictions for the world of cryptocurrency. So I'll talk about the first one. Okay, the first one is important. The first one is prediction number 1. Warren Buffett will come around, or at least someone else will. Okay, so the idea is that traditional people today, like Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, they don't understand Bitcoin. They don't like it. Okay, even recently in the Warren Buffett's annual meeting, his partner Charlie Munger was really saying bad things about Bitcoin, and it's unfortunate. And the reality is he doesn't understand it. Okay, he's a very smart investor, very smart, but he doesn't understand technology. He doesn't understand why Bitcoin is so popular, why it's being used. He doesn't understand the notion that a digital asset can have a limit of 21 million, right? So it's too bad he doesn't understand that. He does understand inflation. He does say that inflation is coming and all that stuff. So I'm like, dude, if you're saying inflation is coming, if you're seeing it, then you should really love Bitcoin. But he doesn't understand Bitcoin, so it's too bad. But I think my prediction is one day, people like him, people like Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett, Berkshire Hathaway, they will come around and they will start to embrace Bitcoin because it takes them time to understand Bitcoin. And that's why I wrote this book. I wrote this book for the audience to start educating people, for people to start learning about Bitcoin. And one day they will all come around and really embrace it.
It's a very good way to wrap up the interview. I don't know. So Bobby, I think, well, there's a lot of other things, but I want to be conscious about your time. So as a last thing, so for people listening to us, and I think I always try to focus on hope and practicality, which you are very good on that. So what would be the advice that you would give, especially for, we have an audience from technology, but a lot of people, what I've been finding talking with people, there's people like you mentioned, that are experts and they're really into this or into the trading. But most of the people, when they think about this, they might have like a very small percentage of Bitcoin. Of course, they can buy one of your wallets, which I think is a great investment. I might do that myself. But
yes.
What would be the advice for people getting into this? But because there's a lot of academics, I have a lot of people from universities, entrepreneurs, startups, and for instance, Elon Musk put a part of their assets in Bitcoin. So what would be the advice you'd give from your experience, but as well from a practicality? Because in the end of the day—
To what? To invest in Bitcoin? I would say
not to invest necessarily, but as some kind of advice to people, because this is not about the— very careful about
my advice is for people to learn about it, to go buy the book, read the book, learn about Bitcoin, and then make a decision for themselves whether they want to invest in Bitcoin. Because you have to be exposed to it. If you just listen to one person and say buy it, or listen to one person say don't buy it, that's not good enough. You need to really do your research. Okay, spend more time. right? Spend 10 hours to read this book. Spend 10 hours to do research online, and those 20 hours will help you a lot more than just reading a quick summary. Oh, do this or do that.
I love it. And I think I love as well your pragmatism. And I love, for instance, the way you mentioned about looking at it as a savings and then looking at that, but doing the homework for all this. So
yeah, do your homework. Yeah.
So about the book, to wrap up, so the book is available, like you mentioned, in Amazon, in a lot of places. It's going to be launched. Well, this podcast will be more or less launched at the same time. But I think it's important. So we're going to put links to the book, to the website, a lot of different things. Any other things you want to say for people that want to find you, Bobby, or they want to engage with some things?
Yeah. So find me on Twitter at bobbyclee.com. So and then it's my name, bobbyclee.com. Okay. Sorry. My Twitter is at bobbyclee. My website is bobbylee.com. Bobby Lee or bobbyclee.com. Okay. The Twitter is just at bobbyclee. And then you can order special deals on my website. Also on Twitter, if you follow me, I'm going to give away a Tesla Cybertruck at the end of this year. So because Bitcoin price crossed $39,900 earlier this year, I promise to give away a free Tesla Cybertruck to one of my followers if you retweet one of my messages.
That's a wonderful way to finish. Thank you so much.